Part 22. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 211. Chapter 211 Don't fool yourself. Fu Wenzi on the side raised his eyebrows when he heard this word, and said, "It's not like the person who is near the water and the tower first gets the moon. It's so close to the end of the world." Tang Wan thinks this word is a bit strange. But compared to the idiom Go 11 said, Fu Wenzi's idiom is still a fact. It's so close and so far away, Zhi made him anxious. Hurried, he was anxious. Ji Helen on the side looked at the three of them ostracizing him with a nonchalant attitude, pouting in displeasure. Just when he was about to say something to join them, Li Tong got out of the nanny car. Li Yu on the side hurried over and called out softly and shyly, "Sister Tong Tong." Li Tong nodded, with an arrogant look on his pretty face. He saw Tang Wan holding the moon in front of the stars at a glance, and felt a little dissatisfied. But she hasn't forgotten that this is a live broadcast. She just raised the corner of her mouth, but she still didn't say anything that wasn't sexy. The audience in the live broadcast room was blinded by Li Tong's outfit. WC. She came out wearing a villa outfit. I used to think that Jia was like a little princess, but now it seems that this Tong Tong is the princess with real money. None of the hairpins on her head are worth less than 4 digits. Ugh, this skirt is worth my 2-month salary. Then your salary is quite high, 100,000 a month. Is it so expensive? This is a purely handmade lace pattern, and the broken bricks on the skirt are also real. Traditional craftsmanship is also used, and gold filigree is used for embellishment. It is very expensive. Hands trembling, lighting up the cigarette. Damn it, even if I make myself laugh, I can't even tell that this person is dressed so expensively. Money really limits my horizons. Why is it so expensive? Damn it, I originally thought Tong Tong looked very noble, and thought it was my imagination, but I didn't expect it was all real money. The topics on the barrage are extremely dense, and most of them revolve around Li Tong's outfit. If they knew that the price of the jade on Li Tong's neck and a set of jewelry was 8 figures, they might be even more surprised. It's really like wearing a villa on your body. But because Li Tong has been exposed to these since she was a child, she doesn't think they are any different. This is something she is accustomed to. So it looks particularly calm and breezy. Han Tang Wan see everything as equal. Li Tong's equality is based on her absolute advantage. Tang Wan watched Li Tong walking toward him step by step, standing there without moving. Finally, Li Tong held up the gifts he had prepared and gave them to the children present. The smile on his face was a perfect social etiquette. It was completely impossible to tell that they had a big quarrel in the group. She had a flawless smile on her face, without any hint of the tit-for-tat she had in the first meeting. Even considered very personable, "Little President, please give me your advice." Tang Wan knows that most people wear different skins on different occasions. The students of Lingyuan College also contracted such bad habits under the influence of their parents. Respecting Luo Yi first and then others is just the simplest social rule. The higher level one, probably Fu Wenzi, looks gentle and polite, but actually has no enthusiasm. Tang Wan wants to change the indifferent social relations and make the atmosphere of Lingyuan College less depressing. But at present, it seems that the road is long and the end is unknown. While she was thinking, she raised her hand to take the gift from Li Tong. Just out of sight of the camera, Li Tong quickly let go of his hand, letting the gift fall directly from his hand. Tang Wan wanted to get it, but it was too late. With a pop sound, the gift in the bag made a crisp and harsh sound, and the contents inside suddenly shattered to the ground. The parents nearby quickly gathered around and stood behind their children. Especially Li Tong's father, he hugged Li Tong and saw that his daughter's eyes were so red. He felt very distressed and asked, "What's wrong, Tong Tong, are you injured?" Tang Wan looked at Li Tong's expression of whether he wanted to cry or not, which was a bit more pleasing to the eye than his usual arrogant look. It's just a pity that everything is just a disguise. Tang Wan turned the watch on his wrist and sighed. Should I tell her that my watch has been recording? But Li Tong shook his head, glanced at Tang Wan, then looked away, and whispered, I'm fine, Dad. It's just that the gift given to the young president was broken. Her tone was very aggrieved, but she acted like a sensible child who was strong and would not cause trouble to adults. I didn't hold it properly and it fell to the ground when I handed it to the president. Li Tong's father looked at his aggrieved daughter and felt heartbroken. He comforted her, it's okay. Your kindness has been received by the president. Right. As Li Tong's father spoke, he looked at Tang Wan who was standing aside, as if he wanted Tang Wan to comfort Li Tong together. However, Tang Wan did not move. She just stood there and watched Li Tong perform. She did not miss the flash of pride in Li Tong's eyes just now. Although what Li Tong said was true, based on her actions, it seemed that she was the victim. Especially the cautious posture, it looks more like he has to take the blame on himself because he is afraid of Tang Wan. Fu Wenzi, who was standing next to Tang Wan, understood. However, the audience across the screen does not know clearly. All they could see was this little princess-like child, pretending to be strong and making people feel pitiable. Who would believe that a child of only a few years old could have so many minds? What bad thoughts can children have? To put it bluntly, adults eat more salt than they eat rice. If they are really pretending, adults will definitely see it. They will not lie. Should I say it or not, Tang Tang should go and comfort her at this time. Even if she didn't break it, but it was carefully prepared, and she's so sad, it's okay to give her a hug. The little girl is so sad, she does look a little distressed. Tang Tang feels that she has changed a lot from before. She was so sensible before, she doesn't need anyone to say anything, and she doesn't go forward to comfort her. What else could it be? She just saw all kinds of luxurious life, so those previous qualities have disappeared. This is her nature. She is an orphan with no education. What good can be expected from her character? Isn't it just because I wanted to be adopted that I pretended to be like that? The talk upstairs is too unpleasant. She is just a child, what bad intentions can she have? Tisk, how innocent can a child who grew up in that kind of environment be? It's okay to lie to others, but don't lie to yourself. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 212. Chapter 212, Reap the Consequences. Tang Wan did not have the same fear of being isolated as before, nor did she feel guilty about being abandoned. She stood quietly and waited for her parents to arrive soon. The handsome actor quickly came to Tang Wan's side and picked up Tang Wan. Lu Lin frowned at the farce in front of him, stretched out his foot and kicked the gift bag on the ground, revealing a few glass particles inside. He crouched down with some doubts, stretched out his hand to pick up one of the pieces, and said, "What is this?" Li Tong is a little afraid of the Lu family. Lu Ziyi had already cast a big shadow on her before, but now standing in front of her was the famous overlord of the Lu family who ignored relatives and ignored family members. Li Tong was even more frightened. She turned her head slowly, trying to hide her face. The guilt in her heart made her fingertips tremble. No one will find out that the gifts in the gift bag are originally broken, right? Even if Tang Wan caught the gift, when she stretched out her hand to pick it up, her fingers would be scratched by the glass. Lu Lin looked at the broken glass into small pieces and sneered, "This gift of yours is quite interesting if it is broken into pieces. It can break into powder when dropped. This is such a brittle craftsmanship. Give me the name of the store and I will report it. Maybe I can get some bonuses." Lu Lin's words were somewhat darkly humorous. It does not sound like a good thing to say. Fu Wenzi, who was on the side, also squatted down and took a look at the fragments, and found that there were traces of being hit by heavy objects on the surface of the fragments, including some small white dots. It doesn't look like it was broken, but it is broken in the first place. Li Tong's father saw Lu Lin coming over. He was about to repeat what he had just said, but unexpectedly, Lu Lin interrupted him before he could speak. Moreover, judging from what Lu Lin said, he was still blaming his daughter. He was immediately dissatisfied. Although the Lu family's financial strength is indeed higher than that of the Li family, this is not a matter of family background. His daughter has done nothing wrong in this matter, so why is he being so sinister and angry with his precious daughter? Li Tong's father immediately became angry and said, "What, are you blaming my daughter for choosing a gift that is not on the market and is not of high quality?" Li Tong's father is a daughter slave. He will buy whatever Li Tong wants. He is not the master of the family, but his wife. He was not a person with business talent, so his father found him a good match. The wife he found for him is a strong woman who is the best at everything. Fortunately, Li Tong's father is not an ambitious person. He has a somewhat submissive personality, and he and his wife complement each other extremely well. I am not evil-minded, but I was raised to be a little too simple, and I will do whatever others say. Even his daughter can easily deceive him. Lu Lin looked at the extremely innocent eldest son Li, and then at Director Li who had arrived belatedly, and sneered in his heart. This Li family is really a bit strange. Those who are capable are suppressed, while those who are incompetent are in a very imprisoned position. It's true that some gods are short-sighted. But this has nothing to do with him. But Lu Lin couldn't bear his move of wanting Tang Wan to go over and comfort his daughter. Whose child is not a treasure? Why should you give in to your own Tang Tang? So Lu Lin refused directly. Although you have good intentions in giving gifts, you shouldn't let Tang Tang comfort me. First, she didn't throw it, and second, it wasn't the gift she asked for. 3. At this point, Lu Lin paused, looked at Li Tong who turned around, and said coldly, "This gift of yours is really for you. Was it broken here?" The barrage started with people marveling at Lu Lin's face. Nothing else. Lu Lin is really good looking. He is simply a shark man with his face. Carry out evil with good looks. However, when they heard Lu Lin say the last words, everyone's rationality slowly returned. Oh, what? What does it mean? Is Brother Lin saying that Tong Tong is framing Tang Tang in all this? No, Tong Tong is only 10 years old, how can she understand so much? You may not know that children can actually lie. They will deliberately make things serious in order to attract the attention of adults. This is the nature of children. Actually, when you were talking about Tang Tang just now, I wanted to say that Tang Tang was just a victim in this matter, but it felt like you were treating her as the perpetrator. Yes, this was actually an accident. Why do you say Tang Tang has bad conduct? Maybe she was also frightened and froze on the spot without reacting. I also think that some of what you just said were actually too mean. If Tang Tang saw it, how sad it would be. Don't talk about Tang Tang, I felt sick after reading it. The mouth is too poisonous. The audience did not actually focus on the fact that children can lie. Instead, I feel that the characters we just talked about are sad. It's not that they are sad, it's that they feel sad for Tang Wan. She obviously managed to have such a good family, but in the mouths of these people, she became a weapon to attack her. Could it be that Tang Wan had a choice about her being in the orphanage? When Li Tong's father heard what Lu Lin said, he became angry. Do you mean that my daughter is deliberately framing her? At this point, Li Tong's father laughed angrily. He picked up his daughter and said loudly, "My baby has had everything he wanted since he was a child. As for you, my adopted daughter, doing these little things. Don't think that because you are from the Lu family, I won't dare to fight against you." When the fat director arrived here, the atmosphere between the two was already extremely bad. He looked at the helpless eyes of the staff around him and took a breath. Hurry and ask them to close the live broadcast room. No matter who is at fault for this matter, it will be ugly. I just run an ordinary child care center that does charity work happily. Why is it so troubled every time? Is there really something wrong with my horoscope? Is there anyone who restrains himself? Tang Wan looked at the anxious fat director, then at the glass fragments on the ground, and then Fu Wenzi pulled his sleeves. Tang Wan lowered his head, came close to Fu Wenzi's mouth, and heard him whisper. This thing seems to have been broken when I handed it to you. Tang Wan narrowed his eyes and nodded. She knew it when she walked over from Li Tong. The sound of the fragments colliding could not be heard from a slight distance. But how could Tang Wan not hear Li Tong, who was right in front of him? So Tang Wan deliberately did not reach out and take the gift bag. People always have to pay the price for what they do. Will reap the consequences. Especially the bad consequences. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 213. Chapter 213. Don't be so sad. The barrage chattered endlessly. Seeing everyone like this, they all started talking. It's easy to catch a horse, it's easy to catch a horse. It was so full of explosiveness from the beginning. He is worthy of being our fuse and fat guide. Children's emotions are really the most difficult thing to understand in the world. From the beginning, everyone was full of discord. But one thing to say is that these parents are very good. They are very concerned about their children and protective of their children. Whether it is Brother Lin or Tong Tong's father, they stand firmly behind their children. Wow, family members, who knows? This kind of parents who stand firmly behind their children are really the parents I dreamed of when I was a child. We don't discuss whose fault this is. Even if I was forced to apologize when I was a child, my parents would only ask me to act magnanimously and apologize to my children for their sake. They will not stand firmly behind Tang Tang like Brother Lin. Tang Tang was not wrong, and I was not wrong at that time, so why should I comfort and apologize? The audience who said this quickly resonated with everyone. Who was not forced by his parents to do this or that when he was a child? Even though he did nothing wrong in many cases, he still had to apologize for the so-called face projects. That's not an apology. For young children, it is humiliation, a knot in their hearts, and a childhood that they cannot reconcile. Yeah, it's obviously not wrong. Why do you have to wrong yourself? This topic quickly became a hot search topic. The fat director never imagined that the show would become such a hot topic before it even started airing. It's just that he doesn't really want such a topic. If I Ganeshes. Does Y talks about entertainment v, to be honest, does Y, I rarely watch baby variety shows, let alone baby variety shows. I don't watch general variety shows. Everyone is busy who has the time to watch slow variety shows, but today, DZY discovered that the child syndrome is not that ugly. At least it gave me the answers I didn't get when I was a child. V, it's probably like, oh, it turns out I don't need to be so sensible to comfort you, and I don't need to apologize. It turns out that it is not difficult to stick to yourself. The public account DZY Talking Entertainment has been around for a long time. It is different from other public accounts in that its truth is truly the truth. I don't know how many people have been offended by what I said. But it still goes its own way and no one cares. Moreover, his words and sentences are always extremely sharp, and he doesn't care about the status of the person he criticizes in the entertainment industry. Even a public account that seems so stubborn actually expresses its grievances in such soft sentences. This is probably a common problem with Chinese education. The first is to suppress, and the second is to abide by the rules. Parental rights and social rights. Most of the injustices suffered by children who are only half the height of adults come from families who cannot resist. Giving cover also gives damage. I cry just looking at it. Tang Tang must be well. Just think of it as saving me. I beg you, you must grow up happily. Please, please grow up healthily and happily, don't be wronged, say what you have to say, and don't do what you don't want to do. Just think of it as saving me. If you encounter something unhappy, be sure to tell Brother Lulin, he will definitely protect you. Woo, don't comfort, don't apologize. These sounds get louder and louder until they are seen. Their parents seem to realize at this moment that the smile of their child more than 10 years ago was not so cute. But the damage has been done and it's too late. What looks like a normal face is actually riddled with holes. People often say that time will take away everything. In fact, time cannot take away everything. It can only seal those wounds. Everyone thinks the wounds are healed, but in fact they are just scars. When I suddenly remembered it one day, it was like a dusty box in the corner being opened, or like the scars being torn open with force, exposing rotten flesh. Then he would say something in surprise. It turns out that I have never forgotten. It turns out that I have not forgotten the injury, and I have not forgotten the pain. I'm just pretending not to care. Pretend that you are normal, pretend that you have not been hurt. Then hide yourself. But today's scene was really uncomfortable, so they remembered it all at once. I think of myself when I was a child, when I was wronged, when I was a child, when I pretended to smile, and then I wanted to reach out and save myself. The fat director looked at the comments on the internet, walked aside silently, and wiped his eyes. He muttered in his mouth, "Damn it, what are you doing? Why are you so tearful?" The staff of the program thought that the online comments would become very strange, but in fact, they just wanted to protect their young selves. Forget it, don't stress the heat, just let them be. Emotions need to be vented. Tang Wan doesn't know the news on the hot search. She and Lulin have just returned to their temporary residence and will not officially record it until tomorrow. Lulin took Tang Wan's hand and chose a room farthest from Li Tong's house. Then he spread Tang Wan's hand and checked whether there were any wounds in her hand. He was a little worried that Tang Wan was injured by the glass product just now. Tang Wan turned her hand over and over in front of him to prove that she was not injured. Then she heard Lulin let out a long sigh of relief, and then said, "As long as she is not injured, I think there is something wrong with her gift." Tang Wan nodded, took out the tablet and wrote on it, "I have a video." Tang Wan knew that this was an era of evidence, and everything she said had to be meaningful, so the video recorder she had on hand was always on. Furthermore, in order to keep enough memory, her videos are directly uploaded to the computer cloud. It is to ensure that it will not be deleted easily and not to be discovered. Tang Wan has always been cautious and will not leave any clues easily. Lulin looked at what Tang Wan had written down, and he wasn't actually that surprised at all. He knew that Tang Wan was very smart. She is too smart, so those tricks are like childish play in her eyes, and she doesn't pay much attention to them. Lulin is just too worried. He will not forget that Tang Wan resisted without leaving any room for time and time again. In Tang Wan's heart, what is she? Is it an indestructible shield or a painless barrier? Tang Wan tilted his head, a little confused. She found that Lulin was looking at her again with eyes that she couldn't understand. Such eyes were too sad and made her a little sad. It would be nice if it could make Lulin less sad. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 214. Chapter 214, Stirring up the nose and hitting the face. However, after thinking about it for so long, Tang Wan still didn't figure out what to do. She realized that maybe it was because she had been thinking too much about others wholeheartedly that she began to be afraid. He was uneasy, he didn't believe he could protect himself. Tang Wan sighed, then took the initiative to step forward and hugged Lu Lin's neck, like a coquettish kitten. It doesn't matter, they are a family. Tang Wan spent a lot of time with Lu Lin. She will always have a chance to prove herself. What Tang Wan didn't know was that there were two pairs of eyes outside the crack of the door of the room, and they could see Tang Wan's movements completely. Mr. Fu lit up a cigarette. The smell of tobacco lingered in the semi-enclosed corridor, occupying everyone's breath forcefully. Fortunately, there were only him and Fu Wenzi in this corridor. Mr. Fu's voice was still so cold, as if he was not very popular, and he said in disgust, "Why, you see that we have a good relationship with each other, but you can't see it?" Fu Wenzi turned around slowly, with the smile that couldn't reach his eyes still hanging on his face, and the words in his mouth were colder than the bright moon broken in the lake. How could it be? I just think that the Li family has been a little too arrogant during this time. Mr. Fu sneered, stretched out his hand to hold the top of Fu Wenzi's head, and said in a harsh tone, "You brat, what do you want to do?" Fu Wenzi spread his hands, his expression was a bit innocent and childish. "Father, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand?" Then he put his hands down, returned to normal, and said, "I just want them to know that people can't be too arrogant." He put a memory card in Mr. Fu's palm, turned around and left, and said politely, "Good night, father." Mr. Fu looked at the memory card in his hand with a cold expression, turned on his phone, and sent a message to his assistant. "Send this video out." "Okay, boss." Mr. Fu was playing with the lighter one after another, but out of the corner of his eye he caught a figure walking out of the middle room. "It's Li Tong's father, he's on the phone." The moonlight was so quiet that Li Tong's father's voice truly fell into Mr. Fu's ears. "Wife, why are you calling me?" "Huh? Is there any conflict between Tong Tong and Tang Wan?" "No, they are not in the same grade, so how can there be any conflict?" "What happened today?" "It's just a small thing." "Didn't Tong Tong prepare gifts for everyone?" "When she handed them to Tang Wan didn't catch them, and the gifts fell to the ground and broke. Tong Tong was very scared, so I went to comfort her. I thought that Tong Tong was so sad, so it would be okay for Tang Wan to comfort her, right, but the girl just stood there, motionless, without any education at all. She is indeed a wild girl who came out of an orphanage and has no upbringing by her parents." Li Tong's father thought that he would get his wife's support if he said this. However, he heard that his wife, who had always been calm and composed, suddenly collapsed. "Li Xiao, do you really have no brains?" A child from an orphanage in Tangguan used his knowledge to get into Lingyuan College in a place with so few educational resources. She was adopted by the Lu family, and the Si family also has a good impression of her. Even the Fu family in Xiangjiang is very polite to her. The Pei family gave her resources, which is also a friendly message. She is not a powerless little girl. Behind her is a more powerful family than the Li family. Why do you want others to comfort you for Tong Tong? Is it Tang Wan who wants the gift? It's Tang Wan who wants it? Broken. Even if this incident was an accident, we should be the one to comfort the frightened Tang Wan, not Tang Wan to comfort Tong Tong. Do you know how much Li's stock has fallen just because of your actions today? It's okay if you don't understand business matters. When I went home today, I saw several gift bags in Tong Tong's room. The contents inside were your choice. So what did Tong Tong bring today? It was a bunch of cups that she smashed on purpose. You are such a big man, and you were tricked by a child. Mrs. Li is really angry. She had just finished working overtime. As soon as she turned on the computer, she saw that her shares had dropped several points, and she suddenly became nervous. After understanding what happened, he felt that his husband was really too naive. Selfishness is human nature. Even children have their own ideas. They are not truly free from desires and desires. Moreover, the matter between Li Tong and Tang Wan was obviously just a small matter, and everyone just said a few words to each other and it was over. However, Li Tong's father wanted to make the matter bigger. It will not be of any benefit to them if this makes a big fuss. Mrs. Li watched her family's shares plummet and was extremely busy. Then I saw the topic on the hot search and felt that this topic might be posted for several days, which would be even worse for Li. She paid to suppress the hot search, but ended up not accepting the order at all. You can think of it with your toes, there must be someone behind it to add fuel to the fire. Mrs. Li thought of this, hung up the phone, grabbed her handbag on the sofa and drove to C's group. It is already 10 o'clock in the evening, but this commercial building that belongs to the Si family is still brightly lit, and there are still people working inside. Mrs. Li picked up the business card and placed it at the front desk, then said, "I'm looking for your manager." The front desk looked at the business card and asked, "Hello, do you have an appointment?" The incident happened suddenly, and of course Mrs. Li did not make an appointment, but the situation was urgent now, and she just wanted the Si family to stop putting pressure. So Mrs. Li did not answer directly, but just urged the front desk to make arrangements quickly. After a while, the front row received a call from the top floor. She glanced at the lady in front of her, then pointed to the elevator next to her and spoke to her. "Hello, please take this elevator to the 24th floor, our CEO is waiting for you." When Mrs. Li heard this, she knew that this matter might be a bit tricky. She nodded and walked up directly. However, when the elevator door opened, she saw the group of people sitting in the lobby froze in place. In addition to Siwei, there are also the Pei family and the Lu family. Although Lu Lin went to record the program, his sister is the real person in charge of the Lu family. The three of them were sitting in the hall and seemed to have been waiting for a long time. As the only woman, Lu Yao waved to Mrs. Li at the door and invited her to sit on the sofa opposite. Just opened his mouth and said, "Mrs. Li is very good at teaching her daughter. She brings some broken glass to touch the porcelain. Isn't this the tradition of the Li family?" Pei Yunzhou smiled like a fox. He lit a cigarette and sat next to him. Then he said, "How about you go, Siy? Look, it's only the first day and someone is kicking his nose in the face. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head?" Chapter 215. Chapter 215 A joke. Everyone present knew that Pei Yunzhou said this just to prevent Mrs. Li from coming to power. He was venting his anger on those children. Especially to vent my anger on Tang Wan. At the beginning, for Tang Wan's safety, Tang Wan's family relationship was not disclosed. Although everyone said to the outside world that Tang Wan was adopted by the Lu family, in fact, only those who had a good relationship with the Si family and the Lu family knew that Tang Wan was actually a child of the Si family. Thinking of this, everyone is not in a good mood. You must know that Tang Wan is in Si's heart, and that may be the only pillar of his life in the world. Tang Wan is also Grandma C's support. If something happens to her, Grandma Si and Siy will probably collapse. People can endure darkness, but they cannot endure the darkness after seeing the sun. Thinking of this, Pei Yunzhou looked at Mrs. Li even more unkindly. Let alone the Si family and the Lu family, even the little devil in their family may not be able to suppress his dark side. Pei Yunzhou has watched Fu Wenzi grow up. Over the years, he has never seen Fu Wenzi have so much patience with anyone. I have never seen Fu Wenzi treat someone of his own age with such an attitude. Fu Wenzi seemed to have suddenly found something particularly interesting in this world, so he wanted to focus all his attention on this person. So if there is any problem in Tangwan, it will not just be these two companies involved. In this current situation, neither the Fu family nor the Pei family are at home. Is the Lu family and the Si family. Siy's eyes were cold. He looked at Mrs. Li in front of him and said, If the Lee family gives away broken glass as a hobby, I will prepare a big gift for Mrs. Lee in a while. Mrs. Lee stood there and blinked, her attitude a little uncertain. She did not expect that there were so many people standing behind just one child. Did their Tong Tong poke a hole in the boss's nest? But that was her biological daughter after all. She couldn't bear to let her daughter be wronged, so she could only hold her forehead and speak with some embarrassment. What Mr. Si said is serious, and this matter is just a misunderstanding. Before going on the show, our family Tong Tong prepared gifts for those children, but time was a bit urgent, so she acted in a hurry and took the wrong bag. The glass inside was probably accidentally broken on the road, and Tong Tong handed it to Tang Guan without paying attention. At this point, she paused, with a gentle smile unique to businessmen on her face. This is just an accident. Logically speaking, Mrs. Lee's words have reached this point, and everyone should walk down the steps. But they don't. The head of the household sitting here is not someone who climbed up from the bottom step by step, enduring humiliation and hardship. They are born lone wolves who graduated from the pyramid. They have always used whatever means necessary to achieve their desired goals and never give in. That is why their respective families have increasingly larger territories in their hands. Especially SIY. Those other consortiums that are supported by family members behind them, the SI group is completely different from them. SI group is in the hands of SIY and Grandma SI. He has absolute control and decision-making power. He is always the only one who wants to step down the steps for others. No one has ever given him the steps and wants him to step down. Although SIY was sitting in a wheelchair, his eyes were always looking upward. That will never happen to him if he lowers his head. The people who could make him bow his head in the past have been buried in the soil. The person who can make him bow his head now is still a little boy. Misunderstanding, SIY repeated Mrs. Lee's words, his eyes full of indifference. In this hot summer, it was as if he was facing an ice cellar, which made people tremble. I don't think there is any misunderstanding. It's probably because your daughter and Tang Tang don't get along well. When Tang Tang went to school for the first time, Li Tong came to Tang Tang as a senior and said some unpleasant things. But we didn't take these things to heart. If she could solve it, let her. She figured it out on her own. The she in SIY's paintings is not Li Tong, but Tang Guan. Mrs. Lee is not a stupid person, so she understood it at this moment. In the families in front of him, Tang Guan has absolute freedom. So Mrs. Lee's last chance of luck disappeared at this moment. She sighed helplessly, and then said, "Then what price do you want us to pay now? Children talk about feelings, but adults only talk about interests. The hot search on the internet is I don't want to be wronged, I don't want to apologize, I don't want to comfort others, but in the eyes of these people in front of me, the only way to suppress this matter is to shed some blood. If we are just talking about interests, it can be considered a good thing. After all, there will always be a moment when the interests are settled. But if not..." Mrs. Lee shook her head, shook the bad thoughts out of her head, and looked at the people in front of her waiting for their trial. After a while, Lu Yao, who had not spoken a word, pushed the cup in front of her. The glass suddenly fell to the ground, making a crisp sound, and broke into pieces with a snap. The two of them also have a lazy temperament unique to the Lu family that no one takes seriously. The moment he spoke, it was as if the air conditioning in the room was entangled with a ubiquitous smoke, making people feel like they were facing an enemy. Don't we have the words to talk about these things? When I came out, my mother said sternly that no one should let our children suffer. We can't do it as adults, and others can't do it either. I didn't call you here to discuss a solution with you, I just told you our decision. What? Mrs. Lee opened her eyes wide when she heard Lu Yao's words, and looked at her in disbelief. Her voice lost its calmness and sounded a little sharp. This is just a play by the children. Is it necessary to do this? Then she used her remaining sense to hold herself back from saying this sentence. Because Mrs. Lee found that the faces of the people present were not good looking. If he dared to say those words, maybe the Lee family would get even more revenge. Just kidding. Lu Yao shook her head, put out the cigarette in her hand, and said, "This is not a joke. This was a vicious insult. Not everything can be dealt with just a few words. In our case, the children's personal needs outweigh everything else. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 216. Chapter 216, when asking for help, you should at least have a better attitude. Mrs. Lee was speechless, and then smiled bitterly. Just tell me. Lu Yao glanced at Mrs. Lee and felt that she was very wise and told her the decision they had just made. On the other side, Tang Wan and Lu Lin also started a new day. This time the program team chose a new process. A completely new gaming experience. Sister Ping Ping, who is still an old friend of everyone, came to everyone and said hello to everyone. The camera once again focused on Sister Ping Ping, who skillfully greeted the audience. "Hello, dear friends and children, I am your Sister Ping Ping. It's time for our new season of New Dads again. This time they are still our old guests. As you all know, we stopped recording in the middle of the last season due to some reasons. This time we will continue the activities from the last time." She explained the cause and effect in a few words, and then made a link between the past and the next, connecting the new season. Of course some of our children couldn't be there due to special reasons, and we couldn't leave the seats vacant, so we invited our new friends. As Sister Ping Ping spoke, she waved to Li Tong and Ji Helen, who were standing next to the nanny car. Although Ji Helen didn't like his actions, he thought that he wanted to leave a good impression in front of Tang Wan, so he put a smile on his face, trotted up to the camera and showed everyone a sweet smile. His mouth Li said, "Hello everyone, my name is Ji Helen, I am 7 years old this year." Sister Ping Ping looked at Ji Helen's face, blinked at him, and signaled him to say something more. However, Ji Helen seemed not to understand, and spread his hands innocently, with an innocent look on his face. Looks like a simple child. In fact, Ji Helen also knew in his heart that the host just wanted to introduce himself more and make himself stand out more. But he doesn't want to use what he knows to please others. So he pretended that he didn't understand anything and returned to the corner, following Tang Wan. It's just that at this time, Tang Wan was already surrounded by children. They didn't leave any space for Ji Helen and could only let him stand outside, looking a bit lonely and pitiful. Li Tong didn't want to be like Ji Helen. She pursed her lips and felt a little unhappy. Thinking about the many children around Tang Wan and the stars surrounding her like the moon, she felt extremely dissatisfied. There is a communication method called backward compatibility in social circles. If the other person is more knowledgeable or tolerant than you are, you will have a feeling of pleasure in chatting with him. Li Tong often talks to people in such an atmosphere, so he thinks that everyone really likes him. However, this is not actually the case. The real reason is that the children who can talk and communicate with her have been mentioned by their elders. If they want to get some benefits from the Li family, they have to pay a corresponding price, that is, they use their own children to please the children of the Li family. So Li Tong has actually been living in a vacuum, in the dream spun by her parents. It was only after she entered Lingyuan College and came to this program that she realized that not everyone in the world supported her. Without the blessing of benefits, Li Tong is actually not lovable. No one likes a mean person, and such meanness can still hurt others. But Li Tong didn't realize this. With the encouragement of her father, she stepped in front of the camera. At such a young age, she had an arrogant look on her face. Likes to raise his chin and look at everyone from a bird's eye view. It's just that the person who shot the video was an adult, so even if Li Tong showed such an expression, he still looked cute under his lens. It weakened the arrogance on her face. The voice was clear and polite. "My name is Li Tong, I am the little princess of the Li group, I am 10 years old this year." This is a real princess, ha ha ha. The way she raised her chin, she really looked like a proud ragdoll cat. She looked so expensive. It turns out that there are children who actually call themselves Princess so and so when introducing themselves. It's so cute. It has a cute idea. The fat director looked at these barrages and quietly breathed a sigh of relief, although he didn't like rude children and hoped that everyone would use harsh words to attack a child. So every time the camera fell on Li Tong, the fat director would subconsciously ask the staff to raise the cameras so as not to record Li Tong looking down. But this shooting technique is so unique that Li Tong seems a little out of place in the camera position of other children. It is obvious that Li Tong is cute in Li Tong's live broadcast room. But in other children's live broadcast rooms, she would become a little sharp and aggressive. Not so cute. Although there is only one word difference between arrogance and arrogance, the meanings contained in them are completely different. However, the fat director has tried his best to protect every child. If it still doesn't work, he has nothing to do. After all, he has to take care of the feelings of most children, and he cannot wrong all the children for the sake of one of them. Li Tong couldn't see the barrage, but thought it was silly to stand here feeding mosquitoes, so he said arrogantly to Li Yu, who was next to Tang Wan, "Hey, come here and fan me, there are a lot of mosquitoes here." Li Yu has long been accustomed to the tone of her sister's orders to her. He resignedly picked up the fan and prepared to go to Li Tong's side, but was grabbed by Tang Wan. The audience in the live broadcast room also felt that something was wrong. This Li Tong, why is he so rude when he opens his mouth to speak? Li Yu and she are also related, so how come the tone she uses is that of a superior? It really makes people feel a little physically uncomfortable. This is not making me feel physically comfortable. You are too sensitive. This is just being frank. She is just a child. Saying such words shows that she has a good relationship with Li Yu and does not need those false feelings. Li Yu came over with a fan, but Tang Tang stopped her. I also feel that there is something wrong with Tang Tang from the beginning of the season, as if she is targeting this new kid. Isn't she just isolating others like this? Last season it was said that she isolated Jia Jia, but you still said that she didn't mean it. If she shows it now, doesn't it mean she is isolating? I also feel that you really praised Tang Wan too highly, she is not that good at all. Tang Wan's live broadcast room began to flood with such smoky barrages again. Just as the fat director was about to suppress these words, he saw Tang Wan walking up to Li Tong with a fan and toilet water. Handed these things to her, and then wrote on the tablet. When asking someone for help, you should also say please and call the person by name. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 217. Chapter 217 is Delayed Justice Considered Justice? Li Tong saw Tang Wan and subconsciously wanted to refute Tang Wan. She hates anyone who takes away her halo in front of her. Before Tang Wan came to this school, it had never been said that only first-grade children could hold the position of student council president. So Li Tong always thought that when he reached the 5th or 6th grade, he would become the president of the elementary school student union, but he did not expect that Tang Wan would show up halfway. At this moment, all her dreams were dashed. You must know that the student union president of this school will basically continue to be the president of the student union as long as nothing big happens. Of course, if one is promoted from the primary school to the junior high school and finds that he is not capable enough to inherit the position of the previous student union president, he will not be able to inherit the position of the previous student union president. The principle of survival of the fittest is clearly reflected in every corner of this school. Li Tong is also well aware of this truth, but as long as he appoints a student president in this school, such a resume will be a very valuable stepping stone for any university or company. Among these companies in Jingqiao, many CEOs came from this school, and they all have more or less the shadow of student union officials. This is their network, and it is also a network that some emerging companies and CEOs who have just entered the public eye do not have. The value of this network is worth hundreds of millions. The experience of growing up together and working together will allow them to leave a glimmer of hope for each other even in the mall. This ray of hope is often a life-saving straw for a company whether it can turn the crisis around when facing danger. So Li Tong was very dissatisfied with Tang Wan becoming the president of the primary school student union. Although he shouted the title of junior president in his words, in actual actions he showed no respect at all, and even had a bit of a yin and yang attitude. If it weren't for Tang Wan, she would have been the student union president for at most 2 years. Tang Wan didn't know the twists and turns, but he just felt that Li Tong was more malicious to him than last time. However, Tang Wan will not put too much of her feelings on people she is not familiar with. The likes and dislikes of others are the most insignificant things to Tang Wan. She has a strong spiritual core and will not change easily because of someone. Li Tong looked at the words written on Tang Wan's tablet and his eyes flashed. In the end, he smiled and said, "My relationship with brother Li Yu is so good that I don't need to say this. You are a little too." She deliberately did not say the remaining 4 words, she just opened her mouth and said something in spoken language. "Have a finger in the pie." Since her back was turned to the camera did not record the shape of her mouth, and no other expressions could be seen on Tang Wan's face. So this sentence fell into the ears of some viewers and became that Li Tong was trying to save face for Tang Wan, so he didn't say it too harshly. I think the little princess Tong Tong seems to be quite considerate of others. Even though she felt that Tang Tang was a little hurt, he didn't say much. Instead, he used these words to push Tang Tang down. I also think that his words are not too problematic. If we are on good terms, we really don't need to say such polite words. And the most important thing is that Li Yu and Li Tong are a family. Isn't it a bit rude for Tang Tang to show off like this? I don't know what to say, but I think Tang Tang is a little strange this season, not as cute as last season. I feel like she has too much control. The comments in the barrage are all about Tang Wan being nosy, just like those last season who suddenly said malicious words towards Tang Wan. They don't need Tang Wan to do too many wrong things, they just need to grasp one point to amplify her problem, and then keep attacking that point. It doesn't even require too much logic or too much rhetorical description. The fat director saw these barrages from the background and shuddered when he heard the cold voice coming from the earphones. Are these IP addresses the same as last season's IP addresses? Is the voice of SIY? The fat director shook his head, but the phone rang soon. The person on the other side couldn't see his movements, so he said, "The IP addresses of the same group of people and the previous group can be fixed in a certain area, but the IP addresses of this group of people can be fixed in a certain area. It's all virtual and feels like it's from overseas." The fat director is tired of these people who make it difficult for him to run variety shows, but he has no choice. For the safety of these children, he must work harder and cheer up. SIY thought for a while and said, "Can you find a way to play Li Tong's first-person perspective?" The fat director immediately understood his intention, and he said hesitantly, "Isn't it a little bad? Li Tong is just a child, so why don't we give her more opportunities?" However, the next second, SIY's voice sounded again, so cold that it almost gave people frostbite, "Then Tang Tang is not a child? Why should she suffer such malice? Can everything be solved just by saying she is just a child? Besides, isn't Tang Tang younger than him? Why can the perpetrator live without grudges? Those people should have apologized, and the truth should not be late. The late truth is not the truth, it is compensation. If you have any grudges, you must avenge them on the spot. This is justice. After saying this, the fat director didn't even know when he hung up the phone. I just felt that Sci-fi's voice seemed to be ignited with anger in the few words he just said. He also vaguely thought of the days when he was a child, when he was always ridiculed because of his fat figure. He could hardly remember the faces of those classmates who called him by their nicknames now that he thought about it. Just every time I look in the mirror, I subconsciously curl up and want to hide my face. Or when you argue with others again and again, you will subconsciously ignore everything you have put in and want to argue with others. These are the sequelae and subconscious effects of unfair treatment. Even now there is still such timidity in his actions and words. The fat director smiled and then shook his head. Sci-fi is right. He has obviously been wronged, so why should such a well-behaved child suffer the same wrong as him? The world should not be like this. While the audience was still accusing Tang Wan of his crimes, the camera suddenly focused on Li Tong's face. Before she could take back the arrogant look on her face, the look reflected from Tang Wan's perspective looked so mean. The voices speaking for Li Tong also dissipated somewhat at this moment. They just. Are you protecting such people? The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 218. Chapter 218. Human ignorance comes from arrogance. Generally speaking, people are not willing to give a child so many bad names. Most of the world is made up of ordinary people with good intentions. Perhaps everyone has a brief moment when he doubts the beauty of this world. But there are more people who are good people who treat other people with the greatest kindness even though they are not living as they wish. So, when they saw Li Tong showing such an expression, they were not only suspicious but also a little hesitant. What if they just saw it wrong? What if it's just that the kid didn't keep his expression straight and the camera is in the wrong position, causing everyone to misunderstand? With this thought, they did not look away, but continued to look at Li Tong. However, they saw Li Tong snorted coldly and whispered to Tang Wan, "Wildcat. It's just that I was accidentally picked up by the Lu family. I really thought I was great." Her articulation was very clear, her logic was clear, and there was no doubt about it. Everyone was also sure that they had no misunderstanding about Li Tong just now. She was just so arrogant, mean, and unreasonable. Mrs. Li looked at these barrages and lowered her head in embarrassment. Those people said yesterday that no matter what happens, they cannot interfere. Li's shares were already falling, and now they are falling even more. She couldn't let them attack Li at this time. It's just that they say that, but whether they do it or not depends on how much their conscience is worth. Thinking of this, Mrs. Li sneered, with a look of self-deprecation in her eyes. She stood up slowly, looked at her own figure reflected on the glass of the high-rise building, with a desolate look in her eyes, and then murmured to herself. It's ridiculous to expect them to have a conscience. How can those heirs who grew up under wolf education empathize with other people? They only care about the people and things they care about. As for the life and death of others, they have never been concerned with themselves and just kept it high. The reason why Mrs. Li sighs like this is that she is such a person. Her cell phone rang after a while, but this time she didn't want to answer the call. It was just the note on the phone that forced her to pick up the phone, but before picking up, she sighed heavily. After she was mentally prepared, she answered the phone, "Father." However, she just called the person opposite her father, and the person opposite started to curse. "You also know my father, what kind of deal have you made with these people in private? Why don't you press the hot search for Tong Tong and let them scold Tong Tong like this? You have hardened your wings within a few years of marrying into our family. If you can't handle this matter well, don't come back." His words were fast, urgent, and dense. Mrs. Li was caught off guard by his few words without saying a word. After he finished speaking and vented his temper, Mrs. Lee slowly spoke. It's not that I don't suppress hot searches, it's just that I can't suppress them at all. The kid named Tangwan has 3 families standing behind her. There is no way to get started. We can only follow their rules of the game. If we continue to help Tong Tong build momentum, Lee's shares. No matter what agreement you made with them, Tong Tong is my most beloved child. You must let her grow up happily and not let her suffer any injustice. Don't tell me that you can't do it. When you first married into our family, one of your instructions was very clear. You have to shoulder the heavy responsibility of our entire family. We have spent so much energy and money cultivating you. You can't even achieve this. Then you are wasting our efforts. The old man from the Lee family on the other end of the phone didn't listen to Mrs. Lee's excuse at all, and his words were full of suppression. In the end, all he left in his words was that he had a debt of gratitude to Mrs. Lee, and Mrs. Lee just needed to repay them wholeheartedly. Mrs. Lee's expression remained normal. She had been feeling numb in life under this kind of pressure. She no longer has any expectations for the so-called family. In their hearts, they are just tools. But this time, Mrs. Lee really had no choice. Doesn't she love her daughter? Of course she loves her daughter. It is precisely because everyone loves their daughter that Lee Tong has developed such a lawless character that no one takes seriously. Now is the time for a backlash, and this is what everyone deserves. Over the years, Mrs. Lee has lost count of how many times she has dealt with things about Tong Tong's arrogance. But she never learned the lesson. Mrs. Lee even had some thoughts in her heart about letting Lee Tong learn a lesson. Over the years, she has vaguely felt that Lee Tong is a little out of control. If she is allowed to grow like this, she may make irreversible mistakes in the future. It would actually be good if the Lee group was hit hard this time and Tong Tong knew her mistake. Compared with the money, Mrs. Lee cares more about Tong Tong's character. But obviously, these ideas are not important to the Lee family, and they do not need to make any changes at all. They always think they are the center, and when they stand here they think everyone revolves around them. Only others can cater to oneself, and there is no reason for oneself to cater to others. Mrs. Lee sighed when she thought of this. I hope Tong Tong can improve this time. The complicated thoughts in Mrs. Lee's heart were not conveyed to Lee Tong's heart. The variety show continues as usual, and Lee Tong still looks arrogant as if no one else is around. Perhaps Lee Tong saw that the camera in the hands of the staff was pointed at her, but she still didn't take it to heart. Because there is always someone who will help her deal with those unpleasant sounds. Because someone has always been there to help her, she can live as she pleases. You can be willful and not take anyone seriously. Only this time, she kicked the iron plate. Tang Wan discovered that Lee Tong didn't pay attention to the camera at all. Looking at her confident appearance, she felt that there might be something wrong with the Lee family's education. People can be stupid and do evil, but once such negative qualities are put on the bright side, they can easily become the target of public criticism. Human ignorance does not actually stem from shallow knowledge. Human ignorance is actually arrogance in essence. Lee Tong has always been arrogant. Lee Tong couldn't understand Tang Wan's eyes, but that didn't stop her from hating Tang Wan's eyes. Because looking at Tang Wan's eyes, she felt like an uncivilized stupid pig, unable to understand what she meant. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 219. Chapter 219 I will protect her. Tang Wan didn't know what Lee Tong was thinking, but in fact she didn't have much ill will towards Lee Tong. In the end, Tang Wan doesn't have much feelings for people he doesn't care about. Just analyzing. This has been a habit of hers for a long time. It is her ability to find a chance of survival in danger. At this moment, a pale hand stretched out from behind Tang Wan, grabbed Tang Wan, and pulled her towards him. It is Fu Wenzi. He looked at Li Tong with an unprecedented indifference. Li Tong had never seen Fu Wenzi's eyes look like this before, which made him a little frightened and a little scared. No matter how much malice she had in her heart, she was still just a child, so when she saw Fu Wenzi's cold look, she couldn't help but shrink her shoulders. A bit timid. But she soon realized that it was a bit embarrassing for her to be exposed in such a state. So he steeled himself again, raised his head and chest, pretended to be strong and looked at Fu Wenzi, and said in a mocking tone, "Am I wrong? She is a wild cat. If it weren't for her good luck, how could she be adopted by the Lu family?" Hearing this, Fu Wenzi nodded and seemed to agree with Li Tong's statement. However, the next second, he spoke, "So it turns out that being an orphan is also good luck in your heart." As soon as these words came out, Li Tong was stunned. Yes, before Tang Wan became the adopted daughter of the Lu family, she was a child in an orphanage. As far as the status is concerned, she cannot be considered lucky. It should be said that he was extremely unlucky. However, according to Li Tong, the fact that Tang Wan was adopted by the Lu family was actually more important than the fact that Tang Wan became an orphan. Aware of this, the viewers watching the live broadcast found it difficult to accept it. They felt that this girl named Li Tong might have some inhuman sufferings. Only then will you feel that money can replace everything. The composition of human beings is extremely complex. Money is only one part of the composition, and emotion is greater than money to some extent. When this child named Li Tong said such words, he was not only despising people's feelings, but also using an extremely contemptuous attitude to erase the suffering that Tang Wan had suffered. In fact, suffering is not worthy of praise, but suffering cannot be ignored either. It exists objectively. It is annoying and hurtful. This understatement angered those who were struggling to survive, and they wrote under the barrage. What's the meaning? Isn't losing a family member more painful in her eyes? I feel sorry for the fact that I just spoke for this child. She doesn't know that the most painful thing in the world is to have something but lose it again. She probably has never experienced hardship, so she can say such indifferent words, thinking that money can bring everything. I am willing to use all the money I have in exchange for my mother to live. I am willing to use all my possessions to help my sick family members get well. Instead of being so understated in his mouth, it was just a simple sentence saying that he was lucky enough to get so much money. Tang Tang could have had a happy family instead of being trafficked and raised in an orphanage. Damn it, it's really like it doesn't hurt to stand and talk. Don't persuade others to do good things without suffering others' suffering. This principle is not taught in aristocratic schools like theirs. These words kept coming out one after another. The fat guide saw the barrage that was about to get out of control and wanted to call the person in charge of the Li family. However, he found that a man suddenly appeared in the camera. Is Li Tong's father. He secretly thought something was wrong, and subconsciously wanted the staff around them to stop it, but it was a step too late. Li Tong's father suddenly pushed Tang Wan away, with Li Tong standing behind him. There was a bit of disgust in his eyes, and he said, "Stay away from my Tong Tong home. You are taking advantage of the large number of people to bully our Tong Tong family, right?" Yesterday's audience saw clearly what had just happened, and no longer envied the protective father at first, but instead felt a little disgusted. I finally understand what the teacher said, behind a naughty child, there must be a naughty parent. This kind of behavior of starting to accuse others indiscriminately is really annoying. You have never been a kindergarten teacher. If you have been a kindergarten teacher, you will have met many parents like this. They will not listen to the teacher at all and just start using their little brains to make up the whole thing, and then said that his child had been wronged. The friend above is probably a kindergarten teacher, so he can say such empathetic words. Yes, That's right, kuk. Touch your head, don't cry, what a sin. Bear parents are more annoying than bear children. Mrs. Lee looked at the out-of-control barrages and sat alone in the dark office, letting the blue light on the screen illuminate her face. And the cell phone he put aside was thinking hurriedly to urge him to answer the call, but Mrs. Lee did not reach out to take the phone, and just sat numbly. She knew it was all over. In just one day, the reputation of the Lee Group collapsed. She has no chance to use her own power to help Lee Tong and her husband change their reputation, and can only let them fall into the abyss of their own weaving. You will reap the consequences, and no one will be able to do anything about it. Sci-fi looked at the heated discussion on the internet and asked his assistant to add some firewood to the fire, hoping to make it burn brighter. This is the internet age. All information is fast, especially when people intentionally want to expose the information. The speed at which they spread is even faster. The information the assistant has is all about things other members of the Lee family have done over the years. These things should have been inconsequential, just minor flaws in character. But now that this reputation has collapsed across the board, it is like the last straw that breaks the camel's back, the last snowflake in the collapse of the snow mountain. Everyone contributed to the collapse of the Lee family. Sci-fi twirled the ring on his thumb and looked at the screen with particularly gentle eyes. Beside his computer is a spliced photo, half new and half old, as if intertwined across time and space. Is their family portrait? There are 3 people on it. We can only embrace each other across time and space. Sci-fi took out his handkerchief and wiped the photo frame carefully, making it spotless and clean as new, while still mumbling to himself. I will protect her. Do not worry. End of this chapter. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 220. Chapter 220. I don't like her a little bit. The variety show is still going on. Based on the lessons learned from the last season, the fat director has decided that he cannot let them watch the barrage. You can't stop halfway, otherwise your variety show will die again. The fat guy thought so in his mind while arranging everyone's actions. The place chosen by the program team this time is the seaside. The original intention is to hope that if we stay away from the place in Huainan, we will not be so unlucky. However, the fat director felt a little sad when he looked at the jumping children and the swimsuits they were wearing. The director who can organize this kind of charity variety show is not a particularly powerful one. Only those who have empathy and strong sympathy can show kindness to the children in the orphanage instead of treating them as tools. The fat director looked at the scars on Tang Wan's body. Even though he was mentally prepared, he was still shocked by the marks on it. The assistant director next to him said directly, "What a bunch of beasts. Such a young child, such a well-behaved child, how could they do such a heavy hand?" The fat director's face didn't look good either, but he knew that Tang Wan wearing such a swimsuit meant that she really didn't care about it. If people like them looked at Tang Wan with strange eyes, would this really hurt Tang Wan, right? Thinking of this, the fat director took a deep breath, suppressed his thoughts, and put the camera on the pink ocean. From a distance, this is a beach that gradually changes from blue to pink. Beyond the beach, cherry blossoms of the same color are planted. Looks like they complement each other, like a beautiful scenery with a filter. It's like a fairyland on earth. The only thing that doesn't fit with these scenery is the looming scars on Tang Wan's body. Looking at the scars on her young body, and thinking of what Li Tong just said, the audience felt that Li Tong went a little too far. Ah, so many injuries, it's really... Wow, I shouldn't have said those words to Feng just now. It looks like it hurts so much. Tang Tang's face looks a little pale. Is she still not well? How could it be possible for her to recover so quickly? If she didn't undergo scar removal surgery, her wounds would remain there for the rest of her life. Then why doesn't Tang Tang undergo scar removal surgery? Yes, why doesn't Tang Guan have scar removal surgery? This question is something that Sci-fi and Lu Lin have never been able to figure out. Until one time, Lu Lin went to ask Tang Guan. Tang Guan picked up the tablet and saw what was written on it. I don't want to get rid of these scars because they represent my past and remind me that I still have a lot of things to do. When Tang Guan wrote this sentence, the expression on her face was unprecedentedly cold, which made Lu Lin feel a little uncomfortable. But when he looked at Tang Guan again, Tang Guan's expression returned to normal, as if the appearance just now was just Lu Lin's illusion. Lu Lin didn't think he was wrong, but he felt that Tang Guan seemed to take her mother's death personally. She took over her mother's responsibilities. Lu Lin can no longer remember what he said to Tang Guan at that time. He just touched her head and said the last thing. Don't put too much pressure on us, you still have us. Thinking of this, Lu Lin's eyes fell on Tang Guan again, watching her holding a small bucket and starting to catch the sea. The white and tender feet sank into the soft sand, feeling a little cold and itchy. Tang Guan moved her feet, watching the pink sand flow through the gaps between her feet, and quietly felt the passage of time. Speaking of it, she hasn't lived such a leisurely life for a long time. Since arriving in Jingqiao, Tang Guan has been moving forward crazily as if someone is chasing him behind him, seizing every moment to study. She wanted to grow up quickly and get out of the limitations of childhood, so she ignored the people around her. Tang Guan knew that Lu Lin did not need to participate in this variety show again. Now he came to participate in this variety show mostly because of himself. He wanted to relax by himself. Tang Guan is not an ungrateful person, so he followed Lu Lin back to the variety show. Tang Guan looked at the pink beach in front of him and found it interesting. At this moment, Lu Zi, who had already run to the other side, suddenly waved to Tang Guan and shouted to Tang Guan, "Tang Tang, come here quickly, there are a lot of barnacles here." Tang Guan heard this and ran over quickly. Barnacles. Tang Guan only knew about barnacles in biology books, but had never seen them in person. She carried the small bucket and headed towards Lu Zi. It looked like a little duck fluttering around. Very cute. Li Tong on the side rolled his eyes and said, "I'm really ignorant. I haven't seen barnacles before." This time, the program team was not going to help her out and recorded her words. Why is she talking like this? I don't like her a little bit. Can you please stop showing her perspective? It's really annoying. I feel so too. A bit annoying. Most of the viewers who have the patience to watch baby dramas are very patient, and they don't have much ill will toward children, and most of them are gentle. It is rare to see someone like Li Tong offend the audience. Li Tong saw Ji Helen preparing to run to Tang Guan. She couldn't help but said, "You want to go too?" Ji Helen didn't even look back and had no intention of talking to Li Tong. Li Tong was left alone, standing awkwardly. But at this time, everyone did not pay attention to Li Tong, but followed the children away. Tang Guan looked at the barnacles on the rocks and felt a chill. Although many people say that barnacles are delicious, their appearance is hard to praise. They are so densely packed that they look like eyes. If anyone with trypophobia looks at them, they may have an attack on the spot. Tang Guan stretched out her hand, wanting to touch those strange-shaped barnacles. However, as soon as she stretched out her hand, she was pressed down by Lu Zi beside her. Tang Guan tilted his head in confusion, as if asking, "What's wrong?" Lu Zi quietly took out a lighter from his pocket, waved it in front of Tang Guan, and said in a voice that sounded like he was laughing, "This is the lighter I stole from my uncle. I saw a video saying that I just use it to set it on fire, they can cook them, I kind of want to try it." Tang Guan glanced at Lu Zi, who was starting to commit suicide again, and felt that it was not unreasonable for him to be beaten all the time. After all, what kind of young master would be so whimsical and want to try everything? But Tang Guan did not stop Lu Zi. After all, Tang Wan always remembered that all the adults were talking in his ears, and they were children. Children can do what they like. It is possible to dream.